How's it going, guys? This is Rio Murata, photographer based in Tokyo. So random video, probably 99% of my viewers, because you guys live outside of Tokyo and Japan. It's evident that I have to tell you guys that during the holiday seasons, the labs are typically closed, and the film that I sent to a lab was postponed and due to the pandemics and all those, events that are occurring right now, and Japan's in the eighth pandemic rush of increasing number of people getting infected and stuff like that, and all these like supply constraints and issues are arising. My film has not been developed, so I basically thought like what I should talk during this day, and it's not about what I'm wearing right now, but I realized that this might be a great opportunity for me to talk about my channel specifically, actually, and the lenses I use, because there might be, you never know when there might be someone who's like interested in making a YouTube video and they are trying to like make that happen, but they don't know what kind of equipments to get and stuff like that. This video in particular, I'm going to be talking about lenses specifically, and a lot of my previous videos I already talked about the digital camera that I currently use, which is the XT3 and the XT4 actually. The one that I'm shooting right now is an XT4 because it has a flip out screen. I can basically see myself while I shoot the video. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about two lenses that I use 99% of the time. And for your information, one is a Fujifilm lens and another one isn't. Sorry, Fujifilm. So number one, the most lens that I use for my YouTube channel is obviously going to be the Fujinon, or how should I say it, the Fujinon XF 23mm F2 RWR Fuji lens, which is freaking long, I know, but this is basically the 100% lens that I use to shoot when I'm basically talking to the camera. And there's a couple of reasons why I use this lens in particular. One is the focal length of 23mm, and you guys probably know Fujifilm lenses, or Fujifilm cameras specifically, are APS-C size camera system, which basically means that the sensor is cropped compared to a full frame, which also means that the 23mm, because it is cropped, you have to factor in the crop factor, which is 1.5. So this 23mm becomes roughly like a 35 to 40mm type of focal length. And this is basically, for me, the best option available, because if you go below 23, you're going to get distortion and your face is going to look puffy and round and not appealing. While if you like shoot with like something above that, like 35 or 50, especially when you're shooting indoors, that's what I'm do most of the time. I mean, my face will look probably somewhere around here if I shoot with a 35, and if I shoot with a 50, it's gonna look like this, which you guys will be sort of like pissed off. So that's why I shoot with a 23mm f2 from Fujifilm. And there's like so much to talk about this lens specifically, but one is the autofocus speed. The Fujifilm's lens specifically, they have a 1.4 variant and an f2 variant. And the f2 variants, there's the 23mm, there's a 35mm, there's a 50mm, and a 90mm f2, which is a portrait lens actually. The 23mm f2 specifically has the fastest autofocus speed of all the Fujicron lenses that I've tested so far, including the 35 and the 50 and the 27mm. I never tried the newest one, but the 23mm f2 has the fastest autofocus speed. And this becomes super apparent when you start shooting video especially. And in my case, I found that compared to a 35mm f2, the 23mm f2 is way faster. And it also, because the current like Fujifilm camera system has some kind of face detection, it hardly loses focus, and it basically can focus rather quick, and I won't have that much of an issue. There was one video that it kind of went off focus and it kind of screwed me over, but it hits like 90%, 95% of the time. So this is basically the main lens that I use when I'm basically talking to the camera and doing these random stuff for you guys. And also I need to mention that it's not too expensive but not too cheap at the same time. The Fujicron type of lenses, I always buy lenses used because it's like buying a new car. If you buy a new car, I don't have a car unfortunately, the value depreciates really fast. You know, the next day it loses like 10% of the value and stuff like that. Same for lenses. The moment you purchase a new lens, the value goes way down. But if you purchase a used lens, the value already dropped. So I think if you buy new, it's like roughly $500, and if you buy used, it's roughly $300 or so. And I know for a fact that people who shoot with Fujifilm has some kind of Fujicron lens. They either have the 23mm f2, the 35mm f2, or maybe the 50mm f2, or the 90mm f2, or I don't know if it's called a Fujicron, but they also have the 27mm f2.8. There's like so many like options, which is like small, compact, lightweight, which fits in my needs, and I like small, compact packages. So this one in particular, because I shoot this indoors, I already have my camera set up already on my desk on a table tripod, and I never talked about this table tripod at the same time. This is the table tripod that I use right now is from Leofoto, which is a brand that I trust a lot, not being sponsored or anything, but they have a lot of these compacts, what I call small sort of like tripods, really stable actually. The one that I use is called the Rangers RLS223C. Is a fully carbon tripod, which I found used for $100 or so, and I basically have a ball head on top of that, and basically have my XT4 on there with the 23mm f2. And in conjunction with that, I have some kind of sort of like a small rig magic arm, which attaches my sort of like smartphone, which has my script on there, and basically read from there, and I'm done for the day. Happy. So yeah, hopefully I'll make a video on this Leofoto table tripod. I need to make it. It's a really good tripod actually, not being sponsored or anything, but yeah, going a little bit off topic, but going back on topic, the second most used lens from my YouTube channel is, I'm unfortunate to say Fujifilm, but it's not you. It's actually from 7 Artisans 60mm f2.8 macro. This is a really interesting lens, and this is like I said, my first lens that I use is basically the lens that I use to shoot myself when I'm talking to the camera. This one, on the other hand, is the lens that I use 100% of the time when I do product shots, product photography, and also many goodies actually. So it's also a macro lens, so if I need to get those intricate close-up shots, this lens covers it all actually. And at the same time, I have to mention that macro lenses, I formerly used the Fujifilm 60mm f2.4 XF, I forgot the name, macro lens, and I actually did not like it. It had an autofocus capabilities, but when you use macro lenses, I mean, it's far more efficient to do it handheld, because you can, you can basically like twist and already get into focus, while macro lenses typically hunt so much that it really pisses you off. So when I shoot like product photography, most of the time I use it on a tripod, and when it's on a tripod, it won't shake at all. So I can basically turn the focus wheel to the desired, focus area, and I can get that shot. So, and another reason why I use this particular lens from 7 Artisans is that, to me, the outer focus looks a little bit film-like, and if you look at like really current lenses, such as lenses from Sigma, well, Fujifilm's like super recent ones are really, how should I say, really high resolution, sharp, tack sharp, and there are people out there who like those types of lenses, like Sigma lenses have distinct characteristics. I typically don't like super sharp lenses. I used a Sigma lens and I actually did not like it. This is like the complete opposite. The 7 Artisans 60mm f2.8mm lens, macro lens, has a more like a film-like look. It has a more dreamy look. It's not super sharp, but it becomes sharper when you like stop it down. But wide open, it's like really soft. But I just like it for the the sake of that rendition in the image. And basically when I use it in my like product shoots, I basically use it like focusing out of focus to on focus, and you guys can tell that the what you call the outer focus area is a little bit distinctive, and I really like that look compared to a typical modern lens. So yeah, and what's interesting about this lens in particular, it can do four things, and I mentioned it a little bit. Number one, it can like shoot product photography, photos. Two, it can shoot video, and if it's like a product photography, if they're like focusing from one area to the other. And three, it can shoot macro. So if you're into like some kind of nature type of photography, this lens can supply you with that. And also, I forgot to mention it on my channel, but this lens is the lens that I use when I want to like scan my film negatives using a digital scan type of method. And I never made a video on it, but you can basically attach this lens to a Fujifilm camera and basically shoot down at the Digitalizer Plus that I made a video on in my last video. Kind of coincides with that. So I can basically use this as a film scanner type of lens and because when you do these what I call film scans, you basically close the aperture to like f11 or maybe f16, and by then the what you call the softness of this lens completely disappears and you won't have issues with that, and you can basically do digital scans with this sort of like setup. And that's basically it. And that's the two most used lenses on my YouTube channel. When I shoot myself, I use a 23mm f2, and when I'm shooting product photography, I use a 7 Artisan 16mm f2.8. This has been sort of my setup for the past year or so. And there's like one exception when I'm actually, you guys probably seen me like go out and to Okutama and these various locations. When I go on like these trips, I also like, instead of like bringing those two lenses, I typically bring my X-T3, and this is the kit lens that Fujifilm has bundled together in most of their camera setups. I did not buy the kit actually. I knew because I'm a professional that it's actually in Japan specifically, it's much cheaper to like purchase used camera body only and used lens only. That combination is actually the cheaper route instead of like purchasing it bundled together. But when I looked at B&H and stuff like that, it's much more cheaper to purchase it bundled together. But in Japan specifically, it's not that, you don't get that much of a steep discount, so it's cheaper to like purchase like separately. But yeah, this is the 18 to 55mm, which I typically bring when I'm going on to trips. On my Okutama trip, I basically use this sort of lens, and it's due to the fact that unlike any kind of kit lenses from Canon and Nikon, oh, sorry guys, but those two manufacturers' kit lenses are rubbish. Honestly, I mean, they are made of plastic. They're like, unfortunately, made in China, but the quality is not that good. But the Fujifilm's kit lens, they are expensive. They're like 2-3 times more expensive than the Nikon Canon counterparts, but the quality is really good to the point where you can still use it professionally, unfortunately. And in my case, when I'm traveling, I travel with this 18 to 55 because it has that range of like covering the what you call the wide angle and also a little bit in the telephoto range. And although it is a variable aperture of 2.8 to 4, I mean, don't have that much of an issue because in most cases I'm shooting in pure daylight situation when there's like a lot of sun shining, so it's not an issue. And I don't shoot with this setup indoors at all, so this is like something I forgot to like mention. So this is like my third lens that I not frequently use, but when I go somewhere, when I travel somewhere, I bring it along because it covers that focal length, and also because it is really small and compact, which I love. It is the lens that I take with me when I go outside. So yeah, that's basically it. 3 lenses that I use. Am I missing something? Yes, I'm missing something. It's gonna be like, oh boy. So this is an exception actually that changed for this year specifically. I actually, in the past year or more than a year, like 2 years or so, I've been like shooting outside with an action camera. I use various types of action cameras, and I wasn't like happy with the quality of footage I got from them because action cameras do really bad in low light, and you guys probably know this is due to the fact that the sensor is smaller. The smaller the sensor on the camera or phone, the crappier the image is going to be. We all know that the larger the sensor, you're gonna get like more dynamic range, better image quality, and it's easier to edit actually. And while I was at it, I tested like 3 action cameras, and I basically, after that, I was sort of like pissed because the image quality wasn't that good. So I tried sort of like a camera, not being sponsored or anything again. I tried a camera by DJI, which is the Osmo Pocket 2, and this really changed my channel, especially due to the fact that it's an all-in-one solution. There's a camera and there's a battery in there, and basically you don't have to remove the battery or anything, but it's an all-in-one solution for vlogging. And I basically tested it out, and I have to admit that this piece of equipment made a sort of like a significant impact in my overall like YouTube channel, due to the fact that it's like what I've been wanting. It's like a small, compact, lightweight, and at the same time, it's not an action camera, so it can get destroyed during the process. So unless you're like doing extreme sports or anything, this is the way to go, due to the fact that this particular camera actually has a larger sensor than the action camera counterparts, and because the sensor is a little bit bigger, it can capture more light. It does much better in low light at night actually, and I've been using this much more frequently when I'm doing like photo walks. And I have to admit that this never existed 10 years ago, and if it did, I would have been really happy. But I mean, this is the great thing about digital cameras. They evolve over time and they get better and better. And it's interesting because this size is completely much smaller than a typical like mirrorless camera or a digital camera or compact camera. And when I'm basically walking around, I basically shoot this, press the record button, I just basically walk. And because this uses a physical gimbal instead of electronic gimbals inside, smartphones and stuff like that, this is much more like efficient in preventing like camera shakes and stuff like that. And I basically, another reason why I basically bought the X-T4 is because it has digital image stabilization. And I thought initially that I could basically bring this X-T4 outside and just walk around with it without any camera shake and stuff like that. I mean, it can do that, but it's bigger, it's bulkier, and it's heavier. And I realized over the course of this year that this camera is much more like for shooting indoors, especially because it has a front-facing camera, and at the same time, it just does that much better in my opinion. So I basically swapped a lot of camera setups, and this is what I'm doing right now. And at the same time, uses this as sort of like a sub main camera when I'm going out to shoot video, and it just works actually. So surprisingly good actually. Oh yes, and yeah, the DJI Pocket 2 actually. The Pocket 2 is the better one. There's the previous one, the Pocket 1, it's exactly the same as a typical like action camera. The image quality is much worse, and while the Pocket 2 is much better. So if you're ever like looking for a camera that's like really pocketable, and if you just want to like have a sort of like a camera to like record your everyday like vlog or something like that, this is really, it's like the best camera probably for video. Like photos, it's crappy, uses mirrorless camera, so oh yeah, I forgot to mention that this one in particular has face tracking, which is not super good, but not super bad. And you guys probably saw me like putting this like on a like a sort of like a chair or something, and basically kind of film myself when I'm loading films and stuff like that. This actually can track my face. It can't track my face right now because I'm wearing something. So oh my goodness. So yeah, it has issues like identifying my Asian face, but yeah. Most of the time I don't wear my hat, so yeah, this is like something like useful at the same time. But like I said, it's not an action camera, so this gimbal is like really delicate, so it might break. So after you're done like shooting, you have to like put it in like a case or so. Oh shucks. like so, and you can basically charge via USB-C, which is really useful. And yeah, so yeah, that's basically it for my 2022 setup for my YouTube channel. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And this is like a advice for you guys, for people who are starting out, I guess. I mean, keep in mind that a camera is just a tool for achieving what you really want to achieve. And obviously, in today's day of age, we're coming to a point where digital cameras are getting so good and at the same time so over spec. It's like having an over spec laptop. You typically only might use like Photoshop, Lightroom, and surf the net, But there's these like great laptops, MacBook Pro 16-inch, which is like overkill, and unless you're doing some kind of architectural work like 3D rendering and stuff like that, I mean, you really don't need that. And it's how like Apple's MacBook, how the professional lineup, you guys probably know the M2 MacBooks, the Pro 16's like overkill. I mean, back like 10 years ago, like I had a MacBook Pro and it can render a little bit of video but not too much. But now, like the Pro 16-inch, which used to be the 15-inch, can do 3D rendering and stuff like that. And if you are doing just photo editing, the Pro is already overkill. The MacBook Air is more than enough. It's coming to this point, same as in digital cameras, like A7 V or something, 16 megapixels. Who needs 60 megapixels? I mean, I work as an e-commerce photographer, and this is a fact. For e-commerce work, you don't need more than 20 megapixels. That's like overkill, and it's gonna be a bottleneck in your workflow. The bigger the the megapixels, the larger the file size. The larger the file size, it's gonna tax your computer and it's gonna make you inefficient. And there's these like things popping out, and people are starting to realize that you really don't need overspec digital camera to do creative work. I mean, the greatest cameras back in the days was like a D700 from Nikon. 5D Mark II was really great, from Canon. Those cameras only have like what, 12 megapixels or something, and a lot of people still use those cameras, and even National Geographic photographers who shoot with digital, when you look at the winners in those like competitions, they use like Nikon D300, Nikon D3s, which were legendary, back in the days. And and you can purchase those types of cameras for like $1,000 or so. And I mean, I know the hype is going on for like the latest and greatest tech, but I mean, when you look at what you currently do, what you really want to achieve, is that camera for you? And in the most case scenario, the answer is no, because it's already over-spec'd and it's like overkill. So, and that's why I continue to use the XT3 and XT4 for my work. It's more than enough. There's like a lot of megapixels in those two cameras already. The XT5 is like overkill for me, and I don't shoot 6K, I don't shoot 4K at all. So yeah, when you are looking for a camera, just look at like what you need. Do you really need it? And I mean, don't keep up with the Joneses, don't keep up with the neighbors. The neighbors purchase an XT5. I purchased an XT5. I mean, that's not the way to go. You can basically use that money, the precious money that you made, for something maybe better for you and for probably educational reasons. Maybe learn more from online courses and stuff like that. There's like more things that's more important than like purchasing a new camera. So yeah, I rambled on again. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Yeah. And if you have any questions, please leave it in the comment section below. Happy to reply. And happy Merry Christmas, actually. So yeah, we'll see you next time. Peace out.